Now, the Council on American-Islamic Relations has blamed Donald Trump for what they said was growing anti-Muslim sentiment. Its executive director, Nihad Awad, said Trump needs to condemn the shootings in New Zealand as a white supremacist attack.
The killer of this tragedy in New Zealand has cited or referenced Trump. And Mr. Trump should reflect on this. Very few people around the world admire him. And now the ones who are admiring him are the ones who see fear of the other. And he has a role to play in fixing this problem. He's not the only one who's responsible for this, but being the President of the United States, he has a lot of responsibility to reflect on.
Well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by Arsalan Iftikhar, human rights lawyer and senior fellow at Georgetown University, and he's joining us live from Islamabad. Mr. Iftikhar, always good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. We will talk more about what the Council on American-Islamic Relations have had to say. But firstly, I want to ask, because I know you follow, unfortunately, Islamophobia and attacks around the world. So what was your reaction? What did you think when you heard about this latest attack?
Well, Elizabeth, obviously, like the rest of the world, I obviously am stunned and saddened that, at least 49 innocent Muslims were slaughtered at two different mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. An attack on one house of worship anywhere in the world, it should be considered an attack on all houses of worships, regardless of whether they are mosques, synagogues, or churches. Here in the United States, where I live, we recently had the attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, by a white supremacist terrorist. And it's important to keep in mind that, Donald Trump, with his rhetoric from the time that he was running for the Republican nomination, has essentially, rubber stamped Islamophobia, and now sadly it's become weaponized by white supremacists around the world.
There has been a rise in attacks on Muslims and other minorities in the US since President Trump took office. At the same time, there has been a rise in white nationalism around the world. So I take it that you agree with the Council on American-Islamic Relations that President Donald Trump has a responsibility to call this what it is and condemn it as a white supremacist attack.
Absolutely. People often forget that while Donald Trump was running for president, he once told CNN anchor Anderson Cooper that, quote, "I think Islam hates us." Obviously, everybody knows that he once called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims from entering the United States of America. And so this, the president needs to understand that words matter, and that, essentially he has emboldened white supremacists around the world, and that he needs to call it out by name, whether it's an anti-Semitic act of terrorism at a synagogue in Pittsburgh or an Islamophobic act of terrorism in Christchurch, New Zealand.
But is he up to doing that, given his history and the things that, as you just mentioned, the kinds of things he said? And if he doesn't, then, who needs to step up to this responsibility?
That's a really good question, Elizabeth. And it's political leaders everywhere. Obviously, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia is something that is not exclusive to any part of the world. We're seeing the rise of right-wing nationalist, racist, fascist parties in Europe and in many parts of the world today. And so it's really important for minorities in all countries, again, regardless of whether they are Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, Hindus, Sikhs, anywhere, that we all stand up for each other as allies. And again, understand that an attack on one house of worship should be considered an attack on all houses of worship.
Mr. Iftikhar, thank you as always for your time. That is Arsalan Iftikhar, live in Islamabad. Thank you.
My pleasure, Elizabeth. Thank you.